Evening. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation on the real cost of home ownership. Today we have with us Tom and Donna from Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Northern Illinois. I'm sure they look familiar by now. And this time they've invited Margarita from the First Midwest Bank. Before we get started, just a reminder to leave any comments in the comment box or the chat box. If for some reason you can't send those, feel free to send them directly to the library and I'll pass those along to our presenters. Go ahead.
Well, hey guys, I'm Tom. I'm Tom, and Donna is at least above me on my screen, and Margarita is to the left here. We are talking tonight. We are from Consumer Credit Council of Northern Illinois, Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Northern Illinois. My goodness, it's going to be one of those days. So, I'm going to share my screen right now. And today we are talking about the real costs of home ownership. So, let me see. Hopefully everybody is seeing. Gabby, are we good?
Yes, we're good.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And thanks for having us tonight as well. I appreciate that. So today we're going to talk about the real cost of home ownership. I think a lot of people, it's not necessarily to scare people. I think it's just more to be aware of what's out there. And there are differences, and let's face it, 2/3 of the world, or 2/3 of the U.S., I think that's the stat, that about 65% of the U.S. is homeowners, 35% are renters. So 2/3, 1/3. So, it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. It's just more or less what I'm trying to do here, or what we're trying to do here, is just make sure that you know and understand, what you're getting into. First we'll talk a little bit about us. We're the Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Northern Illinois. We're located in 3 counties, McHenry, Lake, and Kane counties. We are a not-for-profit 501c3. We are grant funded. So that typically means that, and because we're grant funded, we are, the services that we provide for our clients are free of charge. So essentially they're provided through the grant money that we receive. We have bilingual counselors in all 3 of our offices, and you can see where those offices are across the bottom here. You can also check out our website if you want, illinoiscccs.org, and see what else we do. But essentially, I'm kind of trying to lay it out for you right here. We are HUD certified for housing counseling for first-time buyers, which should be good because that's what we're talking about right now. Foreclosure prevention, reverse mortgages as well on the housing counseling side. We're also affiliates of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And so our counselors are certified debt and credit counselors through NFCC. They cover everything from basic budgeting to credit repair, debt management programs. And then they also cover court approved. We are court approved for bankruptcy counseling and education. So our counselors can also cover those topics. I pull down I do this on every presentation that we do. I have lifted the web page. This is straight from the web page. It kind of talks about what each of the what the counselors do. I like to think that the counselors, whenever you hear credit counseling, you're always thinking you're kind of working towards a deeper end of the pool, and it's probably a fair statement. Most of the people who come in have some sort of issues with credit reports or debt management, student, it's usually some sort of debt issues that they're trying to work through. Keep in mind that while they do that, they also can help out with budgeting and other things, which are, less catastrophic but they're very helpful, even in terms of like first time, home buyers or things like that. Our counselors are also very, they have a great ability to help you that way too. Donna and I are on the financial literacy side of CCCS, and Donna heads up that. She actually does a lot more than I do. I'm on the financial literacy side. And some of the workshops that I talk about are budgeting, and I'll refer to some of these throughout this, because I think that this is probably the one presentation where I can kind of dabble into a few other spots here and kind of back and forth. It's kind of an all-encompassing workshop that we're doing today. But home purchase, renters' rights, these are the things that we talk about. And these are some of our workshops that we do. We're always open to other stuff. So if you got other ideas, by all means, let us know, and we can just work towards providing that for you. We always start this out, and in this one in particular, I really like this this slide. This is always our first slide. The financial plan. The financial plan, it's all part of the plan. Everything on the outside here is all part of the plan. The credit cards, the mortgage, the home purchase, the savings, your liquidity, your student loans, retirement, whatever. It's all part of the financial plan. Kind of feeds into those 4 pillars of the savings, income, expenses, debt, and at the epicenter of everything is the budget. The budget is the financial plan that kind of runs everything, and it usually kind of helps to get you to where you want to be in terms of all the other things. But the budget is really kind of at the middle of everything that we talk about. So when we talk about, and when we start talking about a financial plan and how you get to the financial plan, it all starts with long and short-term goals. Most people start a budget. They don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I need a budget. They usually wake up and say, I got to come up with a way to save, or my credit score is horrible, or, I got to figure out why I'm spending more money than I have every month. It's something like that, but it's usually something that gets them, that prompts them to start looking at their financial picture. And when they do, they come up with more goals and more goals and more goals. So it usually starts with a series of long and short-term goals. And they could be over several time horizons, and they typically are. You might have some things that are more short-term in nature. Maybe just, how do I quickly, let me look at my budget. Let me look at my monthly budget and see if I can get my spending in line. Or, improving my credit score may take a little bit longer. Retirement savings. Well, if you're 20, that's going to take a little bit longer. But I mean, the whole idea is that you're going to have several time horizons, and those are going to change over time, and they're going to adapt. It's a living document, the budget, for lack of a better term. It's a living document. It's going to continue to evolve as you do. So I always tell people, keep it reasonable, keep the budget reasonable, keep your goals reasonable, but within reason, because don't make it too easy on yourself. Give yourself some stretch goals. Don't be swinging for 2 fences. Swing for the fence. Try to hit the ball out of the park. Put a stretch goal out there. I'm all for that. Don't get too crazy though. 10 billion. If you're gunning for Bezos, you got a little. You might have some work to do. But in the meantime, give yourself a reason. Make your goals reasonable. And help try to move yourself forward. Expect the unexpected. The stuff does happen, life happens, but you're here right now, so you're listening to this. I'm hoping that you'll keep moving forward with it and don't give up. So do you really want to own a home? That this is kind of what this is all about. I've got the picture of the fork in the road. Do you want to keep on renting, or do you want to, try something new and different? Like I said before, 65% of people in the U.S. own their own home. The benefits, there's a lot of benefits to that. The first one that jumps out to me is the financial benefit. Other than the people who bought their homes in, 2007 and 2008 at the height of the at the beginning of the Great Recession, people have done pretty well over time. Typically, you can look for, out in the Midwest, we're probably looking at 2 to 3% per year, equity or improvement in your housing price over time. So there's a financial benefit to that. There's a benefit of being able to, for example, to make changes to your house that you want to do. If you want to knock out a wall, you don't want to, you can't ask a landlord to knock out a wall. Now, granted, you can move somewhere else, but do you want to do that? Do you want to have something that's yours? It's really nice to have that. And again, as I said, you benefit from the growth in equity. So there's kind of a financial benefit to that. And then there's also just a general, sense of, there's a lot of people who feel pretty good about, owning their own place too. I'm not saying that that's the only way to do it. Clearly, there's a third of the people in this world who don't, or a third of the people in the U.S. who don't own their place, and with very good reasons. So it really is an individual decision. Some of the other advantages of homeownership, the tax deductions are the ones that kind of jump up to mind. It used to be that, your mortgage deductions, you still get a mortgage deduction. You can still get a loan for interest and property taxes and even lender points and PMI, which is, your mortgage insurance. You can get deductions for that, but it's typically if you itemize. And with the standard deduction kind of moving up to that, what is it, 12? Is it 12.4 and 24.8 for single and married? Some of those deductions have kind of gone by the wayside. There is, and Donna, you'll have to help me out with this one. If there's the energy efficient appliance upgrades, I don't know if I think that's outside the realm of Section A outside the realm of itemized deductions. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe it is.
Yeah, I think if you're itemizing, if you're not itemizing, I don't think you can use this deduction. But so last year you could deduct up to 26% of your energy efficient appliance upgrades or windows, or if you put solar panels on your roof. That for this year, when you're filing at the end of this year, the beginning of next year, you can deduct up to 22%. But all this stuff, you want to talk to your tax professional. Don't take our word for it. But it's all there. You have to itemize to take advantage of of a lot of this stuff. So
I mean, so if you're putting solar on your roof and you're going to spend $20,000 for that, well, you can probably, and you're spending a fifth of that, that probably helps. That might help push your, especially with your property taxes and your SALT limited to $10,000. You might, if you're doing something really big like that, you might be able to enjoy a benefit of that type of deduction. But for the most part, I mean, the deductions are nice, and of course, you're still going to get your property tax credit on your Illinois taxes, so that's helpful too. Again, talk to a tax professional. I'm not a tax professional. I do them once a year. So, and like I said, and there's other stuff in here too. The aging in place for the wheelchair ramps, or grip bars in the bath as you're aging and you want to make changes. There are things that you can do that I think you potentially could qualify for deductions. The other thing, while the tax deduction for working at home, you can certainly, again, this is probably something else you'd want to talk to a tax professional or a CPA about. You have the ability to write off your office expenses or the use of office space if you make exclusive use of that space.
It's hard to do.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to do, and quite honestly, the guys that I've talked to about it have said, I don't know if that's such a great idea. The fact of the matter is, I know we're talking about the advantages of home ownership, and it feels like, to me, the big one was always the loan interest and the property taxes and the lender points, being able to write those off on your mortgage. At the end of the day, most of us are better off by taking the standard deduction. 86% of us now take the standard deduction. So, you may lose that, but at the end of the day, there's still so many other benefits to owning your own home that's really nice to have. It's been better, but it's still not bad at all. As I look at some of the drawbacks of home ownership, what I realize is that even though they're drawbacks, are actually, in some ways, they can be benefits as well. If you look at a mortgage payment over 15 to 30 years, you know what? Yeah, you lock it in, and yeah, you're locking in that payment for the next 15 to 30 years, which can be a drawback. But at the same time, if you're renting somewhere else, you're going to pay that anyway. And the fact that you're locking in those payments means that, you're not looking at rent increases or anything like that. You typically aren't, unless you have some sort of 7-year balloon payment or something like that in your loan that Margarita will talk about. some sort of variable rate loan that you're using to qualify, you could run into issues there. But for the most part, if you lock in with a 30-year mortgage, chances are, you're not going to see a rent increase over that time period. Now your interest won't change, but your insurance could change. You're still going to be paying it for insurance, and you're still going to be paying for taxes. And call it a hunch, but I'm guessing those taxes are going to go up over time. So there's always the possibility of foreclosure, and it really comes down to a question of, what your job situation looks like. Do you have emergency funds? Where are you in the payment? Do you have positive equity, or do you have negative equity? So there's the potential for foreclosure always exists. It really comes down to, can you make your payments on time? And it's just a potential drawback. But yes, I don't think it's any different than some of the other issues with debt that you would have. I think the bigger thing that we could talk about here, that if you move around a lot, if you're more transient, typically if you want to buy a house, you probably want to try to live there for 5 years. And it's just because of all the costs that go up, all the upfront costs that kind of go into this. It typically makes sense if you're going to be sticking around for a decent amount of time. So up to 5 years or 5 years and longer is typically how you want to look at it. It does cost you to move. The cost to move can be limiting, and as far as your growth in equity. And the other thing, and market forces can limit your choices for kind of moving and for at the right time and at the right place. If the market happens to be dropping down 10%, that you may not be able to find an opportunity to move. At the same time, there's a lot of different things that may limit your ability to move. So keep that in mind. But typically, if you're planning on starting a family, or just kind of, having staying in a place for 5 to 10 years, I think it's a pretty good gig. Keep in mind that you are responsible for repairs, utilities. You can't call a landlord anymore. But I think that's the good point, is that you can't call a landlord anymore. You got to rely on yourself to do it. So, but that's kind of the nature of the beast. But at the same time, at least you're in control of your own destiny. So, but you're now responsible for, fixing the roof, or fixing a leak, or plumbing, or septic issues, or, water issues. So, we do have a quick video that I'm going to show here, and take a look. Let me know if it doesn't come up. And it's still loading right now. And my computer is really slow today for some reason. And you do get to watch ads because, well, let's face it, we don't pay for the.
So Tom, right now we're seeing the slide still.
You're still seeing the slide? Okay, hold on. Then I'm going to stop this. I'm glad you said something. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to stop sharing. I am going to.
Is this a great video?
All right. So we're going to go back to. Oops. Let me close that. Share my screen again. There we go. So this is good because you missed the. So now you can see it, right?
Yes.
And you missed the ad. So good for you. It's a win all the way around.
Anna and Walter are young, single, and in love. They've got good jobs, fabulous futures, a magnificent new home that they bought for a song. Who says they can't have it all?
It's gonna be fun fixing it up. You'll see. Look, this is an old house. It's gonna need some work. $5,000? That's just a deposit.
A little work.
When do you think you can start?
Just as soon as your check clears.
A little care.
Do you really buy this house?
Yes, he did.
A little imagination, and it's gonna be great.
Oh, no, mister! You're out! Hey, Mr. Fielding, don't worry about a thing.
money pit. If they've got what it takes, it's going to take everything they've got. Coming this Christmas from Universal Pictures.
Oh, 20 years ago at Christmas.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
no, I hate to burst your bubble here, but yeah, it was Christmas in 1986. So
Oh, that's 30 years.
it might be a little bit more than that. All right. So let me see. It says that okay. So I'm gonna jump back into this now. I got to share my screen one more time. I think at the end of the day, what they really needed was a good inspection. So that would have gone a long way. But
we did get a comment from one of our viewers. You should have warned us that we needed some popcorn to enjoy that video. I definitely had a good laugh out of it.
Well, good. I'm
watch
glad.
the movie. It's a great flick. You can get it on Netflix.
So next time I will. All right. So where am I here? Okay. So we just finished this. Yes. All right. So, but let's talk about it. So, I mean, at the end of the, so can you afford a house? And I think you start with today's budget. If you have a budget already, that's ideally where you want to start. You look at your budget, you consider the costs, you consider the upfront fees, the monthly costs, and you adjust your budget accordingly. If you don't have a budget, and notice that I put this on the right here because everything starts with a budget. If you recall what I said earlier, so I'm hoping you'll kind of reach back and say, hey, I heard that before. So, but we'll start with today's budget. Don't have a budget yet. You should probably make one and then look backwards and see how you've been saving, see how you've been, see what kind of money you've been making, see what your expenses have been, and so on and so forth, and see what you've done over the last 6 to 12 months. Then take the potential upfront fees, the monthly costs, everything that might go into that, and adjust your budget accordingly so you can see what those numbers look like moving ahead. I think that's really, really important to take a look at that and make sure if their numbers don't work on paper, they're never going to work on, unless you are just so conservative, you just got to be really careful with that. So take a look at your budget. Again, the best way to put together a budget, one, you can get a counselor to help you do it, or the other thing is you can just potentially just take a look at it, look back over the last, 5 or 6 months as to what you've been spending on a monthly basis. Look at your credit cards, look at your credit card statements, look at your bank statement, look at these things, and you can pretty quickly determine, where your costs are and how you're doing. And if you think you can actually incorporate this in. So before so we talk about, can you, the upfront costs in this, earnest money, which can be any amount of money. It just depends on, but basically they're asking, earnest money is simply, your way of putting money down to show that you're truly interested in buying the house. Inspection costs, which is something that Tom Hanks and Shelley Long should have done. $200 cost them a whole heck of a lot more. But I think inspection costs are pretty important, as are appraisal fees. So clearly a couple of holes in Mr. Spielberg's story. So, hey, anyway, legal fees as well, escrow, so any potential legal fees for looking at the docs, escrow fees, funding escrow up front, title insurance, origination fees for the lender, which Margarita may be talking about a little bit. And then your down payment, which can be as high as 20 to 25% of the cost of the house, depending on what kind of loan you get yourself into. But things to think about. So that's all kind of upfront. And then on a monthly basis, you're looking at your mortgage payment, which may or may not include your property taxes and insurance. Typically, if you're a first-time buyer, they try to roll that in there. If you've got homeowners association dues, that's something new and different that you probably wouldn't have in a rental payment. Now, that's not to say that you wouldn't see those in a rental payment. You're just looking at a number that's rent and not necessarily your principal, your interest, your taxes all rolled in. You'd be surprised how close they come out to being close to the same. Utilities, if your landlord didn't cover those in the past, it's something that you have to start thinking about. Okay, do I have to cover this? Whether it's garbage collection or, other things that maybe you just didn't think about before. You got to cover the cost of your own cable, that type of thing. And then of course your typical upkeep and maintenance, and your major expenditures, which would include any type of, appliances, or if you got to fix your heater or air conditioner, something like that. All that shows up. Okay, then the fun stuff. I put fun in quotations because let's face it, it's not really that fun. Lawn care, pest control, things, both inside and outside. Appliance repairs and replacement. We just talked about that. Decorating. No one ever likes the way their house looks when they move in. I shouldn't say that. 98% of the people, and I guarantee you that my wife would be one of those who would make me repaint every room. And, I don't like this here. I don't like this there. Let's do this, whatever. I don't like the carpeting. We got to replace the carpeting. We got to do this. We got to do that. That's what I usually prepare myself for if I'm moving. And then just remodeling. And like I said, the beauty of owning your own house is, hey, if I want to knock down a wall, as long as it's not load bearing, I can do that. And I guess even if it is, I can. It just wouldn't make a lot of people happy. But it's just, it just gives you more options. It gives you more flexibility. So it's a nice thing to have. So how much can you actually afford? There's a couple ways to look at this. And, it really comes down to, I guess, your borrowing. It's a question of how much you have to put down on a house, plus how much you can borrow. And typically how much you can borrow and how cheaply you can borrow. At the end of the day, it's really your rate. It's really your debt to income ratio that kind of dictates everything else. So it may dictate your down payment, but it essentially dictates what you can buy and how much you can afford. And that's because your down payment, it's typically 20%, but as Margarita will explain, it's really more for conventional loans. But then you've got PMI in there too. And if you don't have to pay the PMI, you can pay a little bit more. PMI is the mortgage insurance that the lender requires, up to 20%, of until 20% of the house is paid down. Also with a higher down payment, you're typically you're going to lower the amount of interest you pay over the life of the house. You typically qualify for better rates with 20% down. There's a lot of different reasons that, you would want to put down 20%. That said, it's awfully hard as a first-time buyer to put down 20%. But it does. So the big four things that lenders are focused on is your down payment, your credit score, your debt to income ratio, and your assets. Your credit score is the second one. We actually have a workshop on credit scores, and we can talk all the way through anything you want to talk about on credit scores. And in fact, we have done that just recently, if I'm not mistaken, right, Gabby?
Yes, it should still be listed on our YouTube channel.
There you go. And what are you going to see at the bottom? And I love this because, right at the bottom of this, it says 760 to 850 could land you the best possible rate. And that is what I try to drill into people's heads when I do my credit score presentation, is that, you're gunning for 760. That's the best grade. That's the best number you can get, because after that, it's just kind of diminishing returns. But the fact of the matter is, with a better credit score, you're going to get better rates. You're going to have more people. You're going to have more people who are willing to lend to you. So that's really where you should be gunning for. And so if you're thinking about buying a house, but you're not quite there yet, start thinking about it, but think about improving that credit score. Think about how you're going to potentially bring up that down payment to a higher number. It may not be 20%, but you may be able to get it up to a better number than what you have it at now. But keep in mind that these are all the things that determine borrowing power, and then that determines how much house you can afford. Your debt to income ratio, it kind of changes depending on what kind of loan you have, but it's typically like a 28 to 31 one percentage on the mortgage itself, and that's your gross income on a monthly basis, and that would be your housing cost, so your mortgage payment essentially. And then and your debt to income ratio typically has front and back end requirements. I think, well, I'll let Margarita talk about that a little bit more. And then finally, your assets, and it's just basically where's your down payment coming from? What kind of assets do you have? Do you have a 401k? Do you have, do you have savings? Do you have investments? What kind of cushion do you have to help yourself in the event that you come up short on funds to help pay your mortgage? So this is where Margarita will jump in for me. She's a lender, a residential lender from First Midwest Bank. So she has much better answers on most of this stuff than I do. So by all means, Margarita, jump in.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Margarita Perez, and I am a residential lender. I focus on CRE loans, which is affordable programs, but not just affordable programs. I mean, I can pretty much, do anything when it comes to different loan products. Right now, I'm going to talk about the most common loan programs that we have, and this is one of them, a conventional loan. So a conventional loan can range depending on credit score. Credit score is huge because it's going to determine a lot of things when it comes to your loan and what you're eligible for. So a conventional loan can range from 3% to 20% with private mortgage insurance. That private mortgage insurance insures the lender. It does not insure you. It allows you to give a lower down payment, but the loan is insured, right? So the lender's insured with this private mortgage insurance. Now, credit score also determines how much you're going to pay for that mortgage insurance, that private mortgage insurance, because what conventional does is it allows you to give a lower down payment, but then this private mortgage insurance is in case you default on a payment. So the lender is going to look at your credit score and so is this private mortgage insurance, and they're going to determine, how much of a risk is it to lend to you. Now, the lower the credit score, the higher that private mortgage insurance will be. The higher your credit score, the lower that private mortgage insurance. So this is why I say credit score is pretty big, because pretty huge when it comes to lending, because it's going to determine, that's one part that it's going to determine. It's going to determine your private mortgage insurance if you're looking to give less than 20% down payment. So obviously you can give more than 20%. That's you can always do that. But here I have just 3 to 20% because that's when it requires that mortgage insurance. Conventional will allow a 620 to a 680 minimum credit score. This 620 would be the minimum, but with a credit score of 620 to 680, private mortgage insurance might not approve you. So if you're looking to give less than 20% down payment, well, it's going to be hard to find a private mortgage insurance that's going to take a 620 to a 680. So depending on this private mortgage insurance, there might not be one. There might be one, but it's very, very hard to find one with this credit score. So conventional loans have two big investors, Fannie and Freddie Mac. Those are the biggest investors when it comes to conventional loans. You hear about them, but you're not going to see them because this Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, basically what happens is that lenders sell the mortgages to Fannie and Freddie. You don't even see or know about them. They're behind the scenes. You're dealing with just your lender, and the lender's going to do the loan. But most of the time they get sold to Fannie and Freddie. And actually that's who pretty much have, the guidelines. So we follow, lenders follow Fannie and Freddie guidelines. there are different loan terms when it comes to conventional. There's a 30-year, there's a 20-year, 15-year, 10-year fixed. There's adjustable rate mortgages. Your fixed rate mortgages are going to be fixed for that amount of time. So 30, 20, 15, that means that it's fixed for that term. And what's fixed is just your principal and interest. Your property taxes and your insurance may go up or down depending on whether your property taxes go up or your insurance goes up. It all depends. We also have adjustable rates. You can probably get those, by starting off pretty low. But with adjustable rates, what it means is that after a certain term, they can go up, and they can adjust either up or down. And those usually have caps, like, within 1 year, it might not go up by, like 2 points, and then there's also a cap on the life of the loan.
Hey, Margarita.
Yes.
I'm sorry. With respect to kind of the 30, 20, 15 and 7, and I guess the adjustable rates as well, I got a couple questions on rates just in general. And if you just have numbers that you can kind of, throw around them, that would be really helpful. But, for example, like a 30-year versus a 15, people typically, can you talk maybe a little bit about why somebody would take a 15-year loan versus a 30-year loan or even a 10-year fix? What would be the reason for that? And then why would they jump into an adjustable, especially like today? Why would somebody do an adjustable rate today?
So if you're looking for short term, if you're looking to live in this property, you already know you're only going to be here 5 years or 7 years, and you're going to move, then adjustable is great because you start off with a very, very low rate, right? And if you're an experienced buyer, that's another reason too. If you have room for adjustments in case the rate goes up, then it's perfect for you. Because if you have the income and, if you have room in your income for an adjustable rate, just in case it hikes up, then adjustable would be great because it does start at a very, very low rate. Also, if you're looking to move, that would be another reason. If you know that you're going to be moving, 5 years or 7 years, and you want to get that lower interest rate, that would be a good reason. Now, if you're looking, for long term, you're not going to move in a long time, then 20 years might be the way to go because the rate is a little bit higher, but it's also divided into a longer term, which means that even though the rate is a little bit higher, we're going to divide your payments in 30 years, 20 years. It's a longer term, which means that your payment would actually be lower than a 15-year fix or a 10-year fix. Because when you're getting a 15-year or a 10-year fix, you're looking at a lower interest rate, but that's also fixed. But, your term is shorter. So now your payment is going to be a little bit on the higher end. Even though you're saving in interest, if that makes sense, because you're saving in interest, but you're paying it in a shorter term. So obviously you're paying it off faster.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. So would you say that if you're kind of further along in your mortgage and you wanted to refinance it, you're probably looking at more of a 10 or a 15 year to kind of keep your payment locked lower? So, but if you're starting out, you're really kind of pushing for a 30-year, even though that interest rate may be a little bit higher, your payment is going to be lower because you're pushing it out. You're amortizing that over 30 years, right? Unless you think you're only going to be there for 5 years, in which case, if you think you're going to be there kind of 5 to 7-ish, maybe it makes sense to look at an adjustable, which will also, if I'm not mistaken, amortize over a 30-year period, correct?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Yes. So it is amortized over a 30-year fix. So yes. So if you're looking to move and you're going to move in 5 years or 7 years, maybe adjustable would be the way to go. But just keep in mind that you also have to think about, if rates go up, do I have the income, for a rate adjustment in case it does go down? I mean, obviously right now rates have been great. They have been low and they have been maintaining pretty low, but this doesn't always happen all the time.
Right. I'm sorry to derail you, but I thought it would be really helpful for people.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, no, that's fine. Thank you.
I guess one more thing on rates, real quick. What's the differential between like a low credit score versus a high credit score right now?
That's a really good question because yes, so credit score does determine your interest rate too, and same thing, the higher your credit score, the lowest your interest rate would be. So you would be eligible for the best rate, basically, on whatever loan program you choose or you're eligible for. So it would be the lowest rate. Now, the lower your credit score, the higher that interest rate is going to be, and that's because it's more risk for the bank to lend, and also there's less products, and the products that are available usually have a higher interest rate.
What do you think? What do you think the spread would be between kind of the best rate out there, someone with a 760 or higher, and then somebody with kind of the how high can rates get?
Okay, so right now, let's see, best rate would be about 2.75 for a 30-year fix. That's with excellent credit.
Right.
Yeah, so it would be 2.75. Now, not so great credit, it would probably be around 3.25. So we're talking about half a point.
Okay.
And then think about it too, because like I mentioned, for conventional loans, if you have a credit score that's pretty low, it might put you out of getting that private mortgage insurance if you want to give less than 20% down payment. So, it might put you out of getting a conventional loan. And conventional loans, right now, they're like, for example, if you're shopping around for a condo, there's a lot of condos that are not another program, let's just say FHA, that are not FHA approved. So whenever you have, homes, condos that are, not FHA approved, then you're limited to also what you can shop for.
Okay, good. I didn't know that.
Yes, because right now, like there's condos who the buildings are not are not FHA approved, and most of them are conventional approved. So you need a conventional loan in order to get into this condo. And even homes, right now with, COVID, there's a lot of sellers who are saying, hey, I want my home only to be sold to conventional buyers, not because they want, a higher credit score or anything like that. It's because we're going to talk about this when it comes to FHA, but we're going to talk about the requirements for FHA. And when it comes to the requirements for FHA, if you're looking for, to fix something, FHA would not be the way to go, because FHA is not going to allow you to make any repairs or to go into a home that needs any type of repairs. Conventional has a little bit more flexibility when it comes to repairs. So when it comes to the appraisal, it's not that picky. They're not that picky. And what I mean by the appraisal, don't get this confused with your inspection, your homeowner's inspection. The appraisal, basically what it is it's a third party appraiser who goes out to the property and will appraise the home and make sure that this home, let's just say you're paying, for example, $200,000. What the appraiser is going to do is make sure that this home is worth $200,000, what they're selling it for, that it's worth this amount of money. Now, the appraiser is not a certified homeowner, not an inspector, but this appraiser is going to look around, make sure that utilities are on the conventional side. They're going to make sure that the house is in move-in condition, but that's pretty much it. They're not going to look into, seeing, well, this carpet needs to be replaced, or you need painting, cosmetic work. They're not going to look into that. They're going to look into just whether the home is move-in ready or not, and make sure that the value is there, whatever they're selling it for. So a inspection is highly recommended, but the lenders do not require it, depending on the program. Most programs don't require a homeowner's inspection, even though it's highly recommended. This is for you. The inspection is for you. And
I think those certainly are worth their money. They're worth
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So. Exactly. Yes. Now, on the conventional side, I mentioned credit, right? And that's because credit is, the guidelines when it comes to conventional loans, it's more conservative. It's a more conservative program. If you notice, you need a minimum credit score of 620, but then if you're going to give less than 20% down payment, then you need that private mortgage insurance, and that might, a lower credit score might put you out of it. So it's more conservative when it comes to credit. Not only can your your interest rate be higher, but your private mortgage insurance is, also higher with a lower credit score. So your overall monthly payment, if it's on the lower end, can be a lot higher because of the credit score. Okay.
Which will hurt your debt to income. Right. I mean, so it just kind of dominoes, right, as you go.
Yes, it does. It does. Yes. It just affects the overall loan because your debt to income, that's another thing too. Depending, what your debt to income, that's another thing that can put you out of, conventional, because if your debt to income is too high, then, you might not be able to get a conventional loans. And there's a lot of different conventional loan programs. There's affordable loan programs. So there's different types of conventional loans, like, for example, Home Possible, Home Ready. These are all conventional programs. And, but they all have different debt to income requirements, credit score requirements, mortgage insurance, requirement. But the lower credit score can still put you out of those programs. So this is why we say, the higher the credit score, the better, because you might be limited to.
It just creates more options, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's pretty much on the conventional side. Is there anything that I might have missed that you want me to, or any questions?
No questions yet.
All right, we'll fire over to the other side then.
So this is the other loan program that I was referring to, and it's another very common loan program, and it's a FHA loan. FHA stands for Federal Housing Administration. This is a federally insured program, and so this program requires a minimum of 3.5 down payment that may be gifted. Depending on, again, what program you're going to use, because on the conventional end and on the FHA end, there's also, for a down payment, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this, but there's also grants that can help you with that down payment. And so those grants can help you with this contribution. So sometimes when you're receiving a grant, there is a minimum requirement that has to come from you. So what I'm going over, whether it's 3% on the conventional end or 3.5 on the FHA end, this is the minimum for the program. It doesn't mean that it's your minimum, because it depends on, which program you're going to be using and whether you're using grants or not. But in the FHA end, pretty much the whole thing, 3.5 down payment can be gifted. It can be gifted. It can come from a family member, a close friend. So it doesn't necessarily have to all come from you. FHA is a little bit more flexible because this is a federally insured loan program. And what happens is that, how I mentioned private mortgage insurance, well, FHA also has mortgage insurance. It's not a private mortgage insurance, but it's a federally insured, right, loan program, and it's the same for everyone. So whether you're giving 3.5, whatever amount you're giving, it's going to be the same. There is a minimum credit score as well. It's 620, and now it depends on which lender you're using. It can be different for another lender. But the minimum credit score, the average is 620. And your mortgage insurance will not change. It will be the same for everyone, whether you have a 620, a 720. And I'm pretty sure you're probably asking, well, why would I go with FHA if I have a 720, right? Versus conventional, when conventional can probably give me a good rate and let you know that mortgage insurance is low. Well, there's a lot of different reasons, and there's a lot of different scenarios. And one of them can be that maybe there's flexibility that's needed, not when it comes to the credit score, but maybe employment. FHA is a little bit more lenient when it comes to example, like, for example, switching jobs, having different jobs. With conventional, we need a minimum of 2 years, right? FHA, we need a minimum of 2 years, but conventional is more conservative when it comes to employment. If you jump around and you switch jobs, they might say, hey, we want you in the same line of work for 2 years. FHA has a little bit more flexibility, not just with jumping around, but also if you have an employment gap. That's another thing. That's another reason why you might need FHA. So it's more flexible when it comes to employment. It's more flexible when it comes to down payment. It's more flexible when it comes to credit score, because it'll take you the lower credit score and you don't have to worry about, it's going to put me out of mortgage insurance, right? So FHA is more flexible. Now, it can be also a little bit more expensive because you will pay that mortgage insurance for the life of the loan. So FHA has a mortgage insurance that's required on all of FHA for the life of the loan. So it can be a little more expensive, but it is a great program, especially if, you're working on getting a house and, you jumped around because you wanted a better, income, and you're looking to start off and, buy a house, whether, whatever your scenario is, it is a good program and it's a good starting program. So it's a great alternative, for when, you have credit that's challenging, or, also your debt to income is kind of high, because FHA does allow to go up to 55% total debt. And the way we determine that total debt is we take everything that you have on your credit report, plus anything that you may pay outside of the credit report, because there are some items that might not show on your credit report and that we might see on your pay stubs, like, for example, child support. That's something that we will consider as, monthly debt. So what we do is we add up all this debt that you have and we divide it by your gross income. And that's how we determine your total debt to income. Now,
it's gross on a monthly basis, just so you guys are
right. Yes.
And that's the back end.
That's the back end. That's not the front end. 55 would be the back end, which means that's everything. The front end just tells you what your housing debt is. Mm-hmm. So it's just the mortgage for the house that you're looking to purchase, right? Or refinance, right? So it's mm-hmm. just the housing divided by your gross income. That's the front end. The back end is your total, the house and your total debt, whether it's on your credit report or on your pay stubs, but it's your total debt divided by your gross income.
Hey, Margarita, do you find as a lending institution, do you guys do more FHA loans or do you do more conventional loans?
You know what? It's we've had our peak where, it's like right now it's mostly conventional. And the reason for that is because a lot of properties right now are being sold as is. And what that means is that the seller is not willing to make any improvements on the property. And I'm glad you touched on this, because when it comes to FHA, FHA is more flexible with the borrower, but not with the property. So when it comes to the property appraisal, actually, the appraisal is actually the value, but not just the value. That appraiser is also certified to do FHA appraisals, which means that there's an extra step to doing that appraisal. And what they're going to do is, they're not inspectors, but they're going to inspect certain things. Like, for example, they're going to inspect utilities as well. They're going to inspect peeling paint. As minimum as you think that peeling paint might be, it is a hazard when it comes to FHA. And when it comes to FHA, there cannot be any peeling paint. It doesn't matter if it's the garage and you're not going to live in it. That garage will have to be, you have to peel the paint and repaint. And what I've been seeing right now is that a lot of sellers do not want to do any work to the property. They just want to sell the home. So the property is being sold as is. And when it comes to like accepting offers, they'll say no FHA because we don't want to make any improvements. We don't want to make any repairs. And FHA, also another thing that I've seen a lot is the covers for the outlets. Some properties don't have those covers for the outlets. And again, as minimum as you might think it is. And I know a lot of, my customers tell me, hey, well, I can put a cover. Yeah, but you're not the owner, and they want the owner to make these improvements before you move in and before you purchase the property. So that's the reason why we've been seeing a lot more conventional right now than FHA, because homes are being sold as is.
Gotcha. In normal times, I realize that prices are through the roof right now, and they're just supply is way down. But in normal times, would it be a pretty even balance, or what would your sense of that be?
If there was more supplies, then yes. If there was more supplies, it would be more of an average, balance. But since right now there's limited, supplies, we've been seeing a lot more conventional.
So when it like in I don't know if you were around kind of when there was all supply. You go back 10 years. Was that more FHA at that point?
We did have a little bit more FHA. There was more houses available. There was a pretty good balance. But it was more FHA because FHA has a lower down payment.
Right.
You can still get a good rate. It doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not going to be too high. Like, for example, right now, FHA starts at 3%, which is not bad.
Okay.
I feel like so now with the way the landlords are evicting tenants and then selling their homes, they're probably all going with conventional then, because I'm sure a lot of those homes are just kind of, in not the best shape anymore.
Yes.
Yeah,
That would not surprise me.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, Gabby, I think are we out of time? This is a really good.
It's already 8:00. So it depends on you guys if you want to keep going. If anyone that's watching needs to step out and turn in for the night, that's cool too. We'll leave the video up so you can always come back to it if there's other stuff they need to go take care of. But yeah, as long as you guys want to keep going, I'll stay on with you.
Okay,
I'm ready to forge.
So,
What's that?
I think we're almost done, right?
Yeah, we're pretty far through it. So, so yeah, Margarita, are you good on this slide?
I'm good unless you guys have any questions.
No.
Nope, we still haven't seen any questions come in right now. As far as
what about
the
VA loans? Does your bank? How does a VA loan work?
So we do have VA, and basically with VA you just need the DD. What is it? I forget.
DD 214.
Yeah. Yes, and pretty much we just follow that. Whatever, you're eligible for on the VA loan, it's 100% financing, no private mortgage insurance. So if you can use your VA benefits, we follow whatever your certificate says. If it's 100% financing, then that's what it is. And we just follow those certificates basically.
My first home loan was a VA. I'm a veteran, and it was a VA loan. And we thought it was so great because we didn't have to put anything down, and of course, no private mortgage insurance. So that was really great. But immediately after signing the papers, we realized that we owe more on our house than we paid for it. So we were upside down immediately, and that was not a good feeling for us.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of times where, sometimes you're able to get a lower rate as well, with using any other program. That's another thing too. And then if you give a down payment, even using a grant, you might be able to, you already owe less. So it depends on situation, basically,
we have a housing counselor to help us with all those questions. Then we didn't know about consumer credit counseling back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that, clearly there's a lot of different options here, and there's a lot of different nuances as you go through in the different types of programs. And we have counselors who can kind of help people, guide people through that. And clearly Margarita has shown that she can, kind of walk through. And I think any loan professional can, this doesn't seem like something that you probably want to talk through with somebody just to get a better sense of what this all means, because there's just so many little bits and pieces. And Margarita, are you done on this page now? Or?
I am. Yes.
Because it's a great segue for me to kind of lead into this next piece of this, which is the down payment assistance programs. And this is idamortgage.org, which is the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And I wanted to bring this up just because I pulled this up earlier today. There's five separate programs listed under the lending programs tab in idamortgage.org. And they can help first-time buyers with up to $10,000 in down payment assistance. Now, don't get excited and jump for joy. There's some of it, it's opportunities to help people kind of work on that down payment piece so that they can still keep their payments fairly low by doing so. I'm going to guess that means that we're talking about an FHA loan based on what you just told me, Margarita. I could be wrong, but it feels
so. Actually, IDA can be on both conventional and FHA. So you can use a down payment on both.
Yeah. And I think that what I'm not sure of, there were 5 separate programs listed, and one is blocked because it must have been a really good deal, because they were paying up to, I think it was $40,000 in student loans if you bought a house in Illinois. That's the drive that's going on right now. I don't know. That's amazing to me. I'll take it. And clearly people have, because they shut that program down really quick. Clearly they ran out of money there. So it sounds like a good gig. But what I would suggest is I would suggest checking this out. And I would also check out, if you just Google Illinois down payment assistance, there's things that come up under HUD. There's an IDA is in there, and there's some other things that, there's a lot of different programs. And again, this is where I suggest going to a counselor, a counseling group in your area, or try and find a not-for-profit who can help walk you through some of these, because there's a lot of options out there.
If you're anywhere in Illinois, you can come to CCCS too. So, but
absolutely,
it can be overwhelming, huh?
Yes. So I bring this back to this because here we are. We just talked about all this, and so you're buying a house. You got a little bit more on the line here, and it kind of brings up the whole subject of that budget again. Are you kind of brings me back to do you have an emergency savings account? And that gets into the budgeting thing, but it kind of brings me back to, you when you become a homeowner, you're taking a little bit more risk with your living environment. Now, I would say it's not a tremendous amount of risk, but for the most part, you're taking a risk, and you're going to be rewarded for that if you are diligent in making your payments on time, and making sure that you keep your upkeep in check, your maintenance in check, things like that. You maintain your yard when you do all that. So it's a good time to kind of recheck your budget if you haven't already. And I'm going to bring this up again and again and again, because I think this is one of those situations where, even though we're talking about first-time homeowners, it does kind of stem back to the budget, and it goes back to savings, and it really kind of implores you to kind of start working on a lot of different facets of the budget and all different other things that can really help kind of work together to really create a well-oiled machine. On the bottom, you can see I suggest CCCS counselors. Of course, you could talk to any counselor, and of course our crack CCCS budgeting workshops. Nothing but the best there. So clearly, but there's a lot of reasons why, if you're starting to kind of think this way, that you should think about budgeting workshops. You think about the credit workshops that we do, and the video is still up at the library, according to Gabby. Hopefully she didn't take it down while I'm talking. So but the whole idea is start looking forward to the future. If you don't have a budget yet, start one. If you do, kind of anticipate as many expense items as you can. We walked through a few of them and how things are going to change, and implement those into your budget and see what those look like, and still make sure that you have a fund to start, saving for emergencies, or and then once you get to that savings of, emergencies, and you kind of get past that, there's a savings and investment class that I also run that might be, something you might care about too. Again, another shameless plug, but I'm good with that. So in summary, very quickly, and I appreciate you spending a little bit more time with us. There's plenty of pros and cons to owning a house. It's different than renting, but clearly it's a personal decision, and it really depends on who you are and what works best for you. If you're going to be there a little bit longer, maybe it makes sense to kind of plant some roots and, start building some equity in a house. And, there's so many benefits that potentially go with that. On the other hand, if you're more transient, it just may not be right for you right now. So there's pros and cons for each. And we discuss that. Don't forget about think about all the costs that go into buying a house. It is a big upfront expense. But a lot of people think it's worth it. So, but keep in mind the upfront expenses, the monthly expenses, and any other unexpected costs that you come along that you should plan for. Keep that in mind. The big four that the lenders care about: your down payment, your assets, your credit score, and your debt to income ratios. Obviously, as Margarita said, they're all over the board, but at the same time, you kind of get a sense for what you should start looking for and where you should be. And you can kind of hone in on what you think your rate would be, and, do some more homework, talk to us, talk to a lender. There's a lot of people you can talk to kind of just maybe nail that thing down a little bit more. I would throw out one thing, and that is that, I don't think the Fed is going to keep rates low for much longer. Clearly, the 10-year is still at 1.5%, and we're dealing with that. But my guess is that that's going to start to creep up over time too. The 10-year is really it's going to gauge more of that 30-year and 20-year and 15-year, but that the short-term rates are going to really impact more of those adjustable rate loans. Keep an eye on, plan for events out of your control. We talk about that all the time in the budgeting. So keep that in mind. And I'll, again, a shameless plug for our budgeting workshop. But have a strategy. At the end of the day, have a strategy in place and stick to it. And that helps more than anything. Know what your long-term plan is. Again, we talk about it. It changes over time. But at least as long as you have a long-term financial plan, it keeps you kind of heading in the right direction. It keeps you budgeting. It keeps you thinking. It gives you that mentality to kind of think the right way and to kind of, know what the next steps are, and maybe not send yourself into a tailspin or a panic if something, if the heater breaks or the air conditioning breaks or something like that. It just helps to kind of give you a little bit more peace of mind. So, special thanks to all our sponsors here for helping us out with this, for the grants and the donations that have made. These are the people who have so kindly helped us out with putting together these presentations. Here's our slide one more time, so you can take a look at it and see. You can see the website on the bottom there, the phone number. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, if you're kind of looking at this and saying, I need more information, I'm more confused than ever now, give us a call. You can talk to a counselor, and run a few things by them. Maybe you need to make some changes before you proceed with buying a house. They can help you. They can help you in a lot of different ways. So again, I always throw this out at the end because there's always somebody who says, I should have written that down before. So I think that's it for my slide deck. Donna, if you're still there, I don't know if it's in the chat or not, but let me see if I can. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do the chat. I have a private chat, but I don't have the restream, the big chat that Gabby has.
All right. So what I'm gonna do? Okay. Gabby? Can I add to this or no?
On the side, yes.
I have to go. On the side. How do I do it? Because it says private chat.
Oh, if you want to drop any comments there, I can transfer them over to the other accounts.
Oh, okay. I'll do that. I'm gonna see if I can pull this up real quick and it's hopefully I can do it, but I wanted to
for our survey.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
yeah, so I'll explain the survey a little bit.
I got it here. So if there's any questions, questions, by all means.
If anybody wanted to participate in a survey that we use to let our funders know how we're sharing information and who we're helping and how we're helping them, Tom's going to put the link to it's a Google Doc. It will go, when you answer the questions on the worksheet, it will go straight to my email. It doesn't share any information and it doesn't ask for any personal information.
We're not. It just helps us. It helps us determine what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So, and if you can give us any feedback on it, it's fantastic. I really appreciate it. So, we're trying to make these as best as we possibly could, and also, obviously, answer the questions that you have that are just burning on your minds. That's what we're doing.
Of questions.
Really hard for us to do that through the pandemic to get this kind of information and feedback. It's really difficult. So,
speaking of questions, we did get a comment from someone on Facebook. Very good information. Thank you so much. And then one of our study viewers, Stan, asked, should people first rent and then experience some of the costs and then transition into buying a house, or just buy a house first?
Well, I think people typically start out renting just because they're usually more transient when they're younger.
And it's so much more affordable to rent than to come up with a 20% down payment on a house. And
so I would say, especially if they're younger, they probably just want to get out for the first time. I would assume that they want to rent and just see what it's all about. When I think about my kids, I think, you know what, they're probably going to rent, and then they may or may not decide to move back, and then we'll go from there. So
well, and also when you're renting, that's when you decide and you figure out what you do want in your forever home. Do I want a gas fireplace or a wood burning fireplace? Do I need a great room, or is that too big? And do I want a yard? Do I need somebody to mow my lawn for me, or do I like to do that kind of? That's when you figure all that stuff out. It's when you're renting, I think.
And then we did have another question. How long have you been doing this for? I think maybe just providing these workshops.
How long have I been doing this for, or how long has CCCS been doing this for?
Why not both?
Oh, all right. So, if you could throw my, I sent it to you, Gabby, the survey.
Yeah, I posted that one.
Oh,
Okay,
she did put it
thanks.
there.
So, I personally have been doing this, the workshops.
What time is it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm about 4 months, 5 months, Donna. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably closer to 5 months.
Okay, so my background is, and I might as well throw this out too, so you guys don't call me a rookie and give me all sorts of crap.
No,
But
you.
I do want to say that I worked in the investment area in an insurance company for 26 years. So I am all about finances. I'm all about numbers, and quite honestly, what I really like about this job is it gives me an opportunity. And I retired 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, but it gives me an opportunity to, one, try and stay fresh with everything. And two, I really like I like the opportunity to talk to people about things. I get so frustrated when I think about, how people don't know. Now the housing stuff is a little bit different, but there's stuff, people don't understand about credit reports, and people don't understand about it. And quite honestly, I didn't either, but people don't understand about this stuff, and they should understand about it. It kind of bothers me that the state of Illinois, doesn't have any desire to teach their constituents about personal finance. Now, fact of the matter is, who wants to learn their financial stuff from the state of Illinois anyway, right? Apparently they're not that good at it. So, but I think I'm a little better. So anyway, but that's where I come from. Donna's been doing this a little bit longer, and CCCS has been doing this for a while.
Yeah, we've been in McHenry County for since 1982. So for almost 40 years. So, so we've been doing that, and we've started out, the Mental Health Board, McHenry County Mental Health Board started our agency to help people in our county, get a handle on their finances and everything. And it's really grown. We do debt management plans now, and we teach these workshops pretty much from all the way up north to down on the south side of the city and of Chicago, and we're doing them in more and more places all the time. So our agency has been doing this a long time. We have longevity in our employees too. Our executive director has been with our company for 26 years. Would you say?
Except for me. So
well, I've only been there 2 years. So,
yeah. All right.
Yeah, my background is in teaching. I have a teaching degree in computers. I was in the Navy, and then after I got out of the Navy, I worked at a CPA firm as a system administrator. So, but like Donna Jacobiak, our executive director, she's been there 26 years, and a lot of our counselors have been there longer than 5 or 6 years. And so we have people who really know their job and know what they're doing and love what they're doing.
And that's why I keep bringing you guys back, because you have so much knowledge, so many topics to talk about. Just when you think it's over, there I bring them back for something else. If you know anyone who would benefit from this presentation in Spanish, maybe a neighbor, just a family member, or someone who already watched it but would just prefer to listen to it again in Spanish, we will be having it again on October 14th at 7 p.m. here on Facebook and or YouTube, if Facebook doesn't decide to take the day off again.
Yeah, I just heard that.
I was worried about that for a while. But yes, thank you so much, Tom, Donna, and Margarita. Thank you for joining us today and sharing all this information with us.
Thanks for having us.
I posted a couple of the links on the comments. So anything we might have talked about, there's links to the consumerfinance.gov, as well as the link to the survey that they provided. So please fill that out when you get a chance. And that's it. Have a great night, everyone.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks.
Have a great night.
Bye, Marguerite.